Hello, ATNI member tribes. We're pleased to provide an update from the ATNI Climate Change Project. This session, we want to talk a little bit about the BIA Tribal Resiliency Funding, as well as the Northwest Climate Adaptation Science Center and the tribal engagement strategy there. We're pleased to join by Chaz Joan, who's our tribal liaison with the ATNI Climate Change Program. He works very closely with tribes throughout the Northwest and ATNI member tribes and through the Climate Adaptation Science Center. A little bit of background about the ATNI Climate Change Project. As you know, we started this over 6 years ago, and our four goals are to make sure that our tribes are engaged and aware of various climate change programs from throughout the country. Also to serve as a clearinghouse and coordinator of tribal efforts and intertribal efforts. Third, to support ATNI's participation in regional, national, and even international climate policy, particularly dealing with adaptation and mitigation, and now really dealing with some legislation that will help support tribes on a national level. And last, to make sure that tribes are aware of and securing funding to build their capacity to address climate change and take climate action. So that's the four goals of the project, and we're pleased that Chaz has been able to help support that. As you know, the Climate Adaptation Science Center, we developed this partnership back in 2017. We were able to secure funding from the Bureau of Indian Affairs so that we could bring Chaz on, working both with ATNI and the Climate Adaptation Science Center.
Great, thanks, Don. And you can find more information at atnitribes.org/climate change. Yeah, and this year in 2020, the ATNI Climate Change Program launched their monthly newsletter. And so our first publication was in February 2020. And our subscribers are able to find information about climate change and tribes related to funding, different events, news, related jobs, and research that are specifically relevant and curated to be relevant for tribal nations and tribal nations in the Northwest. And you can subscribe at this link, which is found at atnitribes.org/climatechange/subscribe. In addition, I wanted to go over a brief summary of the 2020 BIA Tribal Resilience Funding Awards, specifically for the Northwest and the ATNI member tribes. Across the US, the BIA awarded 159 awards. 36 of those awards were provided to ATNI member tribes. The total of all the awards across the US totaled $14.44 million across the 12 regions. And the ATNI member tribes received 36 of those awards for a total of $3.45 million, which is about 24% of the total dollar amounts awarded to the US nationally. In addition, I was able to work with 6 tribes that were ATNI member tribes on their proposals. As you should be aware that I work with any tribe that comes to me and asks for assistance. And so this year, 6 came to me and I worked with them, and including to my work with ATNI, which I summarize on this slide as an intertribal organization, which I referenced as ITO. Apologize for that. But we were, out of those 6 tribes, we were successful in bringing in $970,000 in successful awards. So I was happy to see that. And here in this pie chart, you can see the breakout of the different types of funding. About 1.9 million went to adaptation planning. This is just for the Northwestern, or this is just for the ATNI member tribes. 1.9 million went to adaptation planning, 139,000 to workshops and training, 149,000 to planning for relocation, managed retreat, or protection in place, and $1 million for ocean and coastal management. And the remainder was spent in travel funding.
Jazz, I'd like to add that it was because of ATNI member tribes' effort working with their congressional delegation and the National Congress of American Indians that we were able to increase the funding nationally from $10 million, which it was for the past 3 or 4 years. And while this administration tried to zero it out, the members of Congress were able to restore and increase that to almost $15 million. Even that amount is less than what we need nationally. Really, if we had 50 to $100 million, we could really engage and empower all the tribes across the country. Right now, only about 60 tribes in the country out of 574 have completed a vulnerability assessment or adaptation plan. So we have a long ways to go, and we encourage tribes to speak to their members of Congress and say, we need additional funding so that the other tribes can get caught up and begin planning. And as well, the existing tribes who have plans in place can begin implementing those plans.
We certainly need a lot more money for implementation. Those fundings are a lot harder for tribes to come by, and that's a repeated critique that I've heard time and time again. So I also wanted to talk about briefly the tribal engagement strategy for the Northwest Climate Adaptation Science Center, which is the partner organization that I work with. I want to give a brief summary of the Northwest CASC. The Northwest CASC exists because of a partnership with the USGS and the University of Washington. And the Northwest CASC partners, as Don mentioned earlier, partners with the ATNI's Tribal Climate Change Program and hosts my position in Corvallis, Oregon, so that everything that the Northwest CASC does can consider can consider the tribe's interests, and I'm able to talk to the Northwest CASC on behalf of the tribes and make sure that everything the Northwest CASC does is really considering the impacts or the ability to how can those actions benefit tribes in the Northwest. So my position is really intended to benefit tribes and to work with the Northwest CASC and ATNI. Northwest CASC has co-sponsors ATNI's climate change events, their workshops, their trainings, such as the summit and the tribal climate camp, and different workshops that we've held in the past. So I think it's a good partnership, and partnership is key to the Northwest CASC's tribal engagement strategy. And so we hope it continues for long into the future. But I wanted to mention specifically this tribal engagement strategy that they are working on, that I am working on. And I've been drafting in partnership with the Northwest CASC staff. I've been drafting a version of it for internal review, and that should be finished anytime now. It's in its final forms. And then we're going to be seeking feedback from our stakeholder, the Northwest CASC's Stakeholder Advisory Committee, specifically the tribal members that are on that. We have 3 intertribal organizations and 3 individual tribes. So we'll be soliciting feedback from them in August 2020. And then we're planning to bring that to all the tribes in the Northwest for feedback. And so we have this proposed tribal outreach plan to get feedback on the engagement strategy. And we're hoping that will be implemented between September and December of 2020. And that will involve hopefully a presentation at the ATNI annual meeting, maybe in a subcommittee or within a working group, posting it to ATNI and Northwest CASC's climate change websites and allowing tribes to comment on it that way. Presenting it at Kathy Lynn's Tribal Climate Change Network at University of Oregon, and soliciting input from the intertribal organizations within our region, including ATNI, Northwest Indian Fisheries Commission, Columbia River Intertribal Fish Commission, and the Upper Snake River tribes. And then finally, we'll submit. United Tribes. Oh, sorry about that. And then submit the tribal engagement strategy to CASC leadership for approval in early 2020. So if you have any feedback on that process, please provided via email to me at cejones@usgs.gov. You can also find my contact information at ATNI climate change website. And I look forward to hearing from you. And thank you very much.